Welcome to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner, a show about shifting our individual and collective beliefs on what is possible for the future of humanity. As our understanding of how our reality continues to shift, we are at a point of reunification between science and spirituality. What does the world look like when we break free from the generational trauma that has kept most humans playing small for thousands of years and step into our full power as the co-creators of this reality? I always ask that you keep an open mind with this podcast. Ask yourself what resonates with my truth at this time and what does not. Respect your intuition, but see if you can get through the whole show because there might be that little nugget buried deep in the conversation that unlocks something for you. Hello again and welcome back to Changing the Channel. I am joined by Melanie Huestis. She's an energy alchemist with a big heart and a mouth to match. She's passionate about cats, potato chips, and authentic human connection. She works alongside spirit to help people align with their true gifts, heal what's holding them back, and learn how to show up passionately to their own damn lives. So, welcome to the show, Melanie. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Happy to
Y-
be here.
You're very welcome. So, tell us a little bit about your journey from, where you started to kind of coming into this energy alchemy and what you're offering the world now.
Okay, sure. So I'll try and condense it. It is a lifelong story that started as far back as I can remember. I have always been connected to spirit. It has never been something that I had to learn or discover. It's just been a constant. And what was unique about my experience is I didn't know that that was different than other people, right? So growing up, I would walk to school with my spirit guides and I talked to my spirit guides and I didn't know that other kids didn't do that, right? So the spirit piece has always been here. The part that has really evolved over the years is more of the healing of myself, coming back to what my purpose is, right? Being happy to show up every day. And that started with a traumatic childhood. It moved into a lot of drugs and escapism in my teens. In my 20s, I had a nervous breakdown. And shortly after that, I had children. So as you can imagine, the stress just kept piling up, piling up. I was diagnosed with panic disorder, had panic attacks all the time, chronic anxiety, was super sick. And through trying to find a way to heal that without just taking drugs, which is the only solution I was offered, I discovered a whole bunch of different ways of coming back to myself, of healing my body, of healing my soul, of connecting to all that is available to us. And the more I found I was excited to show up, the more I wanted to share that with others so that they could have that same experience of not being anxious and stressed out all the time. So that's what I help people with, basically. It's a general thing, but it's also very individual to each person and where they're at. But I help people turn what is not working in their lives, what I refer to as the lead, into the gold, hence the alchemy, into what just lights them up, what makes them excited to get out of bed every day. And I think that's a combination of connecting to our spiritual side, of healing our trauma, and of really just embracing who we are as an individual.
Yeah, and I love that you kind of bring all those together because sometimes it feels like there's people that are you got to heal the trauma and that's how you find purpose in your life. But there's also an aspect of connecting to the spiritual side of yourself or
Mhm.
the non-physical side of yourself. Connecting to again, some people think it's the future version of themselves or their soul family or whatever aspect or whatever term that you're using for it. So I think that those connections are very important because healing the trauma is very important to stop blocking yourself from everything that you're supposed to be experiencing because you have these filters and you have these patterns that are laid on top of your original frequency. But
Mhm.
also, making that connection, finding your purpose, like really figuring out what sets your soul on fire, what gets you excited, I think is
Yeah.
a big key for people to have a successful life here on this go around during this time on the planet.
Yeah, and what I have discovered, not only for myself, but with clients that I work with, is we will attempt to fix things, by trying one thing. Often it's therapy, right? I'm going to go to therapy and I'm going to talk about it and I'm going to understand it and figure it out, which is phenomenal. I've done therapy before. I will probably do it again at some point. But it is this layered approach that for me, if I just tried the physical, or I just tried the mental, or I just tried the emotional, or I just did the spiritual, all of it is beautiful in and of itself. But if you want true long term sustainable healing, you have to come at it from all levels. And that's why I come at it from all levels to help people. Because the other forms on their own, in my experience, would give me success short term.
Mhm.
And I want long term happiness,
Right.
health, right? Not
Exactly.
just for a little while.
Finally, a place for listeners to gather and share. Join the Ascension Update Substack for messages and updates from our brothers and sisters helping with the Ascension, articles on the future of humanity, and a Q&A where you can ask my guides anything you would like. This is the hub for everything Ascension related. Click the link in the show notes or go to joegarner.substack.com to stay at the leading edge of this movement. And now, back to the show. Now, do you notice, does your or do your clients ever, you've had this sustained level of alignment for 5, 10, 20 years, does it ever, is there ever a point where it now shifts where, you were in alignment with this goal, with this idea, and then now for whatever reason it's not working, and because you've done the work, you understand that it's out of alignment, but you just don't understand why?
Yeah, I'd say daily,
Mm.
right? If I'm being honest, it's not about reaching this static point and then everything is good. I'm going to do the work for 5, 10 years or whatever, like you said. And then, oh, I just relax and everything's easy peasy. We are in evolution constantly. And my goal, part of my goal of being here is to learn more, is to expand, is to shift, is to change. I don't want to just be the same Melanie for my entire life. And with change comes growing pains, and you come up against challenges that you have never experienced before. And I think the key difference is that before I got to this place, every time I would hit a wall or a challenge in life, it would be like, "Ugh, this sucks. This is so hard. I can't do this. I get stressed out." Whereas now I still have challenges coming up against me all the time. But then when they come up, I'm like, okay, I'm curious. Where is this going to lead me? What is in here for me? And how can I make this the best experience possible? So it's not something you have to get through to get to the good. Your process of going through the shifts, the changes, and the challenges is the good. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yeah, yeah, the shifting is the part that you're experiencing and you're
Yeah.
enjoying, and that yeah, to be at peace with the fact that everything is always changing, I think
Yeah.
is very, very, fulfilling or peaced, it's peaceful to be okay with the fact that there isn't, and I experienced this, and I don't know if this is part of the kind of system that we or I grew up in where, a lot of people thought, okay, like you go to school, you get the job, and that's, for 30 years, you're just good to go. You're just cruising.
Yeah.
And I realized within 5 years of kind of doing that, starting a business and being in it, like if you're not progressing as a person, like you got to get out of that and find something else. And it took me 7 more years to actually do that, but
Yeah.
it, that idea that, you go to work for 30 years or you're gonna be in the same place in your life for 30 years is just it's not what is, especially now that everything's changing so quickly in society. Like,
Yeah,
it almost feels like every 2 to 3 years, you have to reinvent yourself in order to stay even just at the same pace as society, so
for
yeah.
sure.
So yeah, as we continue, as this speed of shifting and changing continues, the technology continues to change, the way we develop society or build society is going to continue to change. So
Mhm.
from your perspective, as people realign with themselves and understand that this change, that this the speed of change is probably not going to shift anytime soon, like What does that start to look like from a coach's perspective, and then maybe a little bit more on a macro level, like for society wide? Like, what are some of the things? What are some of the themes that you're starting to see or feel into when you kind of tap into the future?
Okay. So, first of all, I will say that many people are struggling with this. Is probably the biggest complaint that I hear is, oh, this energy. It's
Hmm.
so heavy, it's so dense, I'm really foggy. And especially with people who previously didn't have a hard time connecting to their spirit guides, to their angels, to that soul piece of them, they're now coming up against this resistance. It feels almost like a disconnection. And one of the big things I think is important to note is with this speeding up of the ascension and the energies changing so frequently, we really can't attach to any one place, right? Which is what we've been talking about, just always being willing to change. And even with spiritual practices, if you ground your energy, clear your energy, you have a beautiful meditation practice that isn't necessarily going to cut it anymore, right? So the best thing that I can say is to really be open, to really be super curious about how can I show up differently? And again, being okay with the discomfort that comes with this quick ascension, right? Because none of us are feeling, well, I shouldn't say none of us, most of us aren't feeling absolutely amazing through this. We're in
Right.
physical bodies, right? That are dense, that vibrate at a lower frequency. That's why we can touch ourselves, why we can, have physical matter, and we just have to accept that it's here for us, right? And so what I see going forward, more so for individuals, is taking your power back and not necessarily needing to call someone like me to book a session to shift your energy, but figuring out how you can take that power, take that control, knowing that you're safe, that you are connected, even if it feels different, even if it feels a little bit more challenging, that everything you need is available to you. And then as we start to individually take our power back, take more control, take more ownership of our experience in this shift, there's going to be less finger pointing, less blaming. One has struggling because of you, or this guy did this to me. And so now my day's crap. And if each and every one of us individually can take ownership of our own happiness, our own health, our own connection, I don't see the same type of interaction in our communities, nationally, globally. Like, we're not going to be fighting as much. There's not going to be
Right.
as much dichotomy and separation. Because if I'm focused, if I literally wake up in the morning, I'm like, okay, what do I need today? How can I give that to myself? And then I show up to the world from a place of having everything I already need. I'm not going to get triggered. I'm not going to get angry at people. I'm going to be like, how can I help? What do you need? What can we create together? And if every single person did that, like, we wouldn't have war. We wouldn't have hunger. We wouldn't have, people without clean drinking water because we'd all be so focused on, I feel this great and I want everyone to feel this great. Kind of like a macro scale of my journey,
Hmm.
right? When I felt horrible, when I was stressed out, when I didn't know what I needed, I didn't care what was going on outside because I had to be focused on just getting through my day, right? Getting out of bed, going to work, feeding the kids, all of those things. But now that I have this capacity to hold more for myself first, I have unlimited energy to give to others.
Right. And
For
that's how we could all
Well,
be.
exactly.
And that's how I think it's almost like not necessarily dominoes, but that first domino that tipped over, right? Like it took a lot of energy to get that one to go. And then the
Yeah.
next one, that person knocked over maybe two dominoes and then they started doing this. And this process, this ascension process, I mean, from my perspective, has started since the 60s or 70s, a little bit before that, back in the 20s and 30s. And there's always been this esoteric wisdom that has been on the planet since the previous iteration of humanity. It was kind
Yeah.
of passed down in these small lineages, kept secret, kept quiet, kept away from everybody. And now all of this esoteric knowledge is starting to come out into the public, and through the internet is being propagated even further and faster than I think anybody could have ever imagined. Um, So yeah, that's kind of where we are at this point. It's like this all the information, all the wisdom is out there for people. They just have to take the steps to go get that knowledge, to get that wisdom, to get that understanding, and to find and what I'm working on is helping people with intuition. So finding tapping into your intuition to know, okay, which one is for me and which one is not, so that you don't
Mhm.
spend maybe 6 months trying to learn Kundalini when that wasn't the path for you. You know,
Right.
you were supposed to work with a certain coach that could get your mindset correct and figure out what is blocking you instead of, this kind of esoteric, a little bit more difficult understanding of how to again find that alignment within all of your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual bodies.
Yeah, and I would take it even a step further and say that that esoteric information, it's just energy, right? Information is energy. It's actually within all of us already. So
Mm,
I don't even think we need to go out and search for it. But going back to what you're saying about the intuition, again, that is inherent within each and every one of us. We all have the ability to intuit what is best for us. I believe we all have the ability to be an empath, to connect to spirit. It's all within our human design, and it runs through the body, it's connected to the body. So if you have a body, you have access to all of that. And again, I feel that right now, especially what is needed is a coming back to the self. So using that intuition to just tune into this and say, what is best for me? Right. And you will get your messages. And sometimes you have to work at it. Like if it's Kundalini, you mentioned, well, you might not hear a big voice go, Kundalini,
mm,
right?
mhm.
But maybe you're going to get the urge to stretch your body. Or maybe you're going to hear really calming music that you heard in a yoga class once. And then you're going to think, okay, I'm being drawn to move my body, maybe in yoga. So then go and search out yoga classes in my area and see which one kind of resonates. But I think we need to start here because with the internet specifically, well, not even just the internet, collective energy, we are getting so caught up in each other's stuff that isn't meant for us that I think more times than not, that actually blocks our intuition from bringing us our truth. Because is it, my energy that I'm feeling, or is it my mother's energy and my kid's energy and, Joe's energy? Because I spent time with him today.
Right.
So I think going back to the intuition internally and starting there will bring you a clearer answer more quickly.
Yeah, I had a very fascinating guest on a couple weeks ago, Glendy Young, and she teaches energetic hygiene. So how
Yeah.
to cleanse yourself from all the energies, all the patterns that you pick up throughout the day, and
Mhm.
really making that a daily practice. So each morning you clear out from the etheric realm that you just spent 6 to 8 hours in, clear that energy out, come
Mhm.
into this physical vessel, be in the conscious waking state, and then during that conscious waking state, again, you're interacting with tons of people, unless you're meditating in a cave somewhere in the Himalayas. But for most of us, we're out in the public. We're
Yeah.
we're interacting with 10, 20, 50, 100 different energetic beings that are all broadcasting their signal out to each other. And making sure that you're not picking those up, whether that's consciously, subconsciously, unconsciously, and then clearing that out at the end of the day and saying, okay, I'm clear, I'm
Yeah.
ready for bed. And then just doing that, just like you brush your teeth every morning and every night, hopefully.
Yeah.
You have just a little bit, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I mean, it could be as easy as snapping your fingers and saying, I release all energies that have been attached to me today. And that's it. And that's your practice. And then you just kind of move on from there. And again, the intention, the belief is what makes it a reality. So
Yes.
just as long as you believe that that short little thing takes you into this next level of energetic healing or energetic hygiene, then that is what becomes your reality.
Yeah. I love the snapping. So simple, right?
Yeah.
One and done. And I teach that too when I work with clients. It's where we start. It's where we have to. Like you said, it's as important as brushing your teeth every day. So yeah, I think that's a great reminder.
Any tips on we have portions of the population, they're moving through ascension, they're moving through this higher energetic wave, they're figuring things out for themselves. Then
Mhm.
you've got people who are 5, 6, 10 steps behind, and not, behind in any negative connotation, but they're just not at the same level as everybody else. So as we, as a collective, as a society, start to have these, not necessarily bifurcations, but from my perspective, I mean, we all kind of have to make this shift somewhat together. Otherwise, it doesn't work out very well. Like if a whole bunch of people ascend really, really far and then just kind of leave everybody else, which sometimes that's what it feels like has happened over the last couple of years. Like
Yeah.
some people have just gone so far into the ascension, and maybe that was their purpose, maybe that was their role. But you kind of have to turn back around and say, okay, like, help that next group of people and help the next group of people. Just like you would, you're the first one up the ladder, and now there's people coming over the wall, and you lend a hand to those people coming over the wall. So like, any recommendations, any thoughts on how that process really starts to play out in the collective, especially as we have this next wave of people going through their awakening process, which could be anywhere from, a couple 100 million to maybe 1 billion people all going through this, like, this next wave of ascension coming up?
So I mean, there's so many different places that I could go with this. I think what I'd like to touch on is we need people at all vibrations. And I know you're not saying it in a negative way as people are behind, but we need some people to be in that place in order to support us that are at a different place. The perfect example I can think of is myself and my husband. My husband is the most unspiritual person I think I've ever met. He thinks that all of the stuff that I do is crazy. He's my biggest supporter as well. We
Mm,
don't have to agree to support each other, but we come at life from very different perspectives and very different vibrational levels. And what I find is that he keeps me grounded. Like I would be out in the astral 25/7. I'd have a hard time coming into my body because I work in those places and because that's, my belief system. And similarly, when he's really stuck in a lower vibrational thought or a lower vibrational experience, I have the ability to say, hey, here's a different perspective. And I think how we do this, how we help those here to kind of move forward, and also how we maybe meter those who are trying to get there a little too quickly. Because I see a lot of that with people. They just want to go, 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 go.
right.
That's not
Spiritual bypassing,
right.
I it's funny in the circles that I run with, we've kind of jokingly called it like the New York approach to spirituality. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
how long is this gonna take and how fast can I ascend within the
Right.
next 15 minutes? And it's like,
Like,
whoa,
it's
like
not
slow
gonna
down.
work. If that's
Yeah.
your approach, I can tell you right now, it's not gonna work. So I think what is key is not so much ascertaining where anyone needs to be and helping them to get there, as much as everyone meeting the other person, the person in front of them, where they are, but finding that common connection,
Hmm.
right? And so, like, it can be anything, any example. The one that's popping into my mind, though, is during the pandemic with wearing masks. And a lot of people are like, I'm not going to wear a mask. That's a horrible thing. And a lot of people are like, I have to wear a mask. That's the only way to do it. And so, what I really saw during that time is that both sides, I hate to use the term sides, but that's really what it seemed to come down to as a split. Both people wanted to be safe. Both people were concerned about health. Both people were concerned about the health of the greater community.
Mhm.
We happen to have different perspectives on how to carry that out. But when you whittle away all of the surface information, most of the time, we're all on the same page. We actually crave the same things, right? We want connection, we want safety, we want love, we want to be seen as we are. And so I don't think it matters so much what vibration you're at, how far along in the spiritual path you are, is that if we can pause and meet the person in front of us and find that common ground, that's going to bring all of society, all of the world to a higher place way faster than doing all the spiritual things you're supposed to be. It's
Yeah.
even kindness,
It is, yeah,
right?
it's just being a human to other humans and
Yeah.
allowing that to to kind of lead, because it does, it changes you. And that's that human that experiences another human for the, maybe it's the first time in a couple days or a couple weeks that someone has like truly been nice to them, or has
Mhm.
truly like tried to understand who they are or where they're coming from. That sets off just a little bit of a green flag. It's like, hey, that was really nice. I really enjoyed that conversation. How do I have that more? And maybe it takes them a couple times, to really fully understand that. But if imagine if that was happening on a daily basis to them. Now they're
Yeah.
thinking like, "Oh, this is how reality actually works." They start tuning into, again, from like a quantum field, like they start tuning into a different reality.
Mhm.
And the other one is, you're always attracting what you're that the same energy that you're putting out. So
Yep.
if you're being super negative, you're only going to attract negative situations and negative people into your life. And even though you're walking by all these super nice people, you're not even like you're on a completely different wavelength as them. Like
Right.
they're just ground music basically playing in the background. Even if they say, "Hey, like how's your day going?" You could turn that into who is this person asking me how my day is? Like, that's the whole idea behind changing the channel. It's like you have to change the frequency that you're tuned into to
Right.
experience a new reality, to experience this better reality.
Exactly. And although I believe that it needs to start from within, the greater goal we are hopefully moving towards, what I believe we're moving towards, is more community, but heart centered community.
Mhm.
And again, that starts with the person in front of you, whoever that happens to be. If it's your loved one, if it's a stranger, if it's someone you want to like throat punch, right? You start with that person in front of you. And even like you're saying, if you're walking by and someone's like, "Hey, how are you doing?" We are so conditioned to just spit out, "Oh, I'm good. How are you?" But just pausing and actually taking in the vibration of what that person is saying to you. How am I today? And how am I? And how about giving an honest answer? I'm actually pretty crappy today, but I'm
Yeah.
doing my best and I'm here and thanks for asking. How are you? Just by getting out of that automated loop, right? That we tend to get stuck in and just thinking about what is actually happening between two people, that can shift everything for you, for the person. And then every person that you go out and engage with for the rest of the day, you're showing up at a higher vibe. Even if your day is crap, right?
Right.
Because you stopped, you observed, you took a different path just by answering honestly, everything else you experience for that day is going to be of a higher frequency.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes back into the neuroplasticity too. Like you're rewiring, you're changing your brain on how you do that because you're doing a new thing. The
Yeah.
the the newness of the thing that you do creates new neurosynaptic connections. And in those connections, you're now able to, see reality from a different perspective. And
Mhm.
if you do that over, a couple times a day, do that a couple days a week, do that a couple weeks in a row, all of a sudden now your whole view of reality has shifted in the physical, vessel that you're in this in the mental and emotional states that you're operating in, and then eventually in, the frequency, the spiritual aspect of yourself, the frequency of who you are being at that single moment.
Yeah. And
So you talked a little bit of, about this shift and when we get through this shift into, the higher reality that we're looking to experience. So
yeah.
what does that start to look like from your perspective? Like what give us a little glimpse into the future that you envision as we all do the work, as we start to experience each other as on a human level, and we start to really become a global society.
So I think when I envision it, and the funny thing is, I can read the future. I am psychic, but I don't. And a lot of people are always surprised by that. But I believe the whole point of being human is to experience this journey, all of it, right? So I don't want to know what's coming. That would take away the whole curiosity piece, right? But what I hope is going to happen, what I envision for myself personally, is just being truly connected and embodied to what brings me pleasure and joy. And it's so simple, but I believe that that is what every human's purpose is on this earth. Find a way that you are happy and you're connected and you're in alignment with what matters to you. And then you are going to create, like I was saying earlier, you're going to create this life that is just really beautiful, that is not necessarily perfect because I don't believe that that's helpful, let alone attainable. But this life that is really beautiful and really something, again, that you want to share with other people. And then if your neighbor, which can have a totally different way of showing up in the world, right? A different philosophy, different habits, but they feel that it is so beautiful and so incredible. And then you come together, that just expands. And if we can manage to do this globally, again, I see less fighting, less suffering. I mean, we really can eliminate suffering completely. I do believe that. Not necessarily pain or discomfort, but this whole idea, we're all suffering so much right now. And I believe that that is totally unnecessary. So, my vision for this higher vibrational experience that we are working towards is one where everyone individually gets to show up in the way that is right for them, that brings them joy and pleasure. And then that releases into the people around them. And I mean, it's hard to put into words because it just sounds like utopia, right?
Right.
But I think we're so mired in the suffering and the shame and the discomfort and the judgment that our society really places on us. It's almost impossible for us to imagine what I think is coming.
Yeah. Does that come through a little bit of disintegration of that society?
Oh, we
Of
need to. We need to. And that's what I believe is happening in the world right now with all of the tragedies and all of the wars and all of the ugliness is we need to see the truth of what we have been living in order to facilitate positive change.
Right.
And again, it is an inherently discomfortable or uncomfortable process to go through. But what we do as individuals, a lot of people talk about the dark night of the soul, right? When you're on the bathroom floor, just praying to God, please let me get through this. Most of us have had those moments. When you hit rock bottom and you find your beautiful way through it and you find your journey and your purpose and all of that, I believe that's what we're going through on earth as a global community. We are in the dark night of the soul. We are hitting rock bottom and we have to go there before we can start to work our way out.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think we've already kind of hit that rock bottom. It seems like 2012 was probably the rock bottom that we hit, and then everything else that has been happening, especially in the last decade or so, and that's probably going to happen for another 6, 7, 8 years, is
Mhm.
just this surfacing, bringing that
Yeah.
discomfort, that ugliness, that disconnectivity to the surface, so that it can be dealt with. And
Right.
just because there's a whole bunch of different things, we've got wars, we've got famine, we've got fires destroying people's homes, all of that stuff. It's really just it's that darkness coming up to the surface so that it can be dealt with. And
Right.
if we choose not to deal with it, just like if you have this huge spiritual experience and you choose not to deal with it, not to integrate it, not to really understand what that was trying to show you, well then we'll continue to live this for an extra year, an extra 2 years, an extra 3 years. And it really does. It takes each one of us to start saying, "Hey, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I'm not going to buy into, whatever the story is that's being told across, the media, or across, what one person said, what my neighbor had said. Like, I'm not buying into that story. I'm believing in a different story, a story of a brighter future, a more harmonious humanity. And then uh, as we continue to do this, I think we kind of start to unlock what feels like the help from the spirit world, the help
Mhm.
from the beings that have already made this jump in consciousness. And they're at the top of their ladder, reaching back and saying, "Hey, humans, come, here's what to expect. Here's how to, build a society. Here's how to heal yourself in a maybe a little bit less energetic way than you guys have kind of come up with so far." And that's what seems to be happening now, is that, we're starting to make connections with the aspects of ourselves that have done this. They've been through this process, not
Mhm.
maybe in a human body, maybe not on the earth and not with the exact same circumstances that we have, but they're here and they're helping us. And if you tap into that intuition, if you listen to your body, you can hear the multidimensional aspect of yourself. You can feel into that and say, "Hey, here's a situation that happened, what's the next step?" And just sit there, meditate on it, pray on it,
Yeah.
whatever you do to connect to the higher aspects of yourself. And then it would be nice at some point if we could all agree on what we're talking about and who we're talking to. But again, they're just energy. And from my perspective, they're showing whomever is calling on them, they're showing them the thing that they're most comfortable with. So whether that's an
Yeah.
angel or an alien or your higher self or a past life or a future life, it's all just energy and it's expressing itself to make you feel comfortable. But at some point, I think it would be neat and it would be very helpful
We
um,
can all agree.
if we could all agree that, hey, we're experiencing a higher energetic aspect of reality, and let's not fight over what it's called or who it's called or what gender it is or any of that. Let's just agree that there's an intelligence that exists in this reality that communicates with us if we choose so on a daily basis, and it's giving us a roadmap for how to move towards a higher reality, how to move towards
Mhm.
that aspect of our humanity that we know exists, and a heart led, still in the mind, still we still have physical bodies, we're still going to have a physical existence, but it doesn't have to be suffering. Like you said, it doesn't have to
Right.
be about suffering. Life does not have to always be about suffering.
Uh-huh. And I think too, with what you're saying, how everyone will receive it in a slightly different way or a radically different way, that it's really important to go back to that intuition piece and to trust whatever you are being shown is what is for you.
Mm.
It doesn't matter if it's like what I experience is going to be, I'm sure, different than what you experience. It doesn't mean that one of us is getting the right information and one of us isn't. Right. And often I find that spirit will show different people different things to get to the same vibrational code.
Mm.
Right. So, like, let's say spirit's trying to bring through um, the message of love. And for one person, maybe a red rose represents love. So they will get an image of a rose. And maybe someone, it'll be the embrace of their grandma. And so they'll just feel, a warm hug kind of feeling from their grandma and they will get love. And every person will feel it differently. But if everyone got shown, say, a rose, one person would be like, oh, the message is love. Another person would be like, oh, the message is hate, because that's what my boyfriend gave me when he dumped me that, one time. And another
Right.
person will say, well, roses are covered in pesticides. So it means, we're all unhealthy and we're going to die. And so spirit will bring you the experience that you need within your repertoire of what you have been through to get you to the right conclusion of that vibrational frequency. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what makes it difficult, to be a coach, to be a guide, to be somebody, and not to put your perspective on things. And that's why it's very important, like, to find your intuition as a coach. It's
Mhm.
like, these messages aren't for you. Like, you can't be putting your personal perspective on these messages. It's like you got to be asking your clients, okay, what does that mean to you? Uh what does this rose mean to you? And then you can get into, okay, this is, yeah, let's
Right.
let's talk about that. Let's understand what that is bringing up, and then continuing to go. So I
Mhm.
think I think you said it earlier, like, the more that we can get to a point where every single human is capable of understanding the messages that they're getting, understanding their intuition and what it's meaning and showing and guiding them to, the
Mhm.
better that it's going to be. And that's my goal through teaching intuition is not to intuit things for other people. It's to
Right.
teach people how to intuit things for themselves. And that's a world where, you don't need all these rules and regulations, and you
Exactly.
all you need is to be able to listen to that voice inside of you that is guiding you, and to be able to discern what is the voice that's guiding you and what are all the other things that you've just picked up over the last day or month or year or the entirety of your existence on the planet, or past lives, future lives. Again, I've had a couple guests on here that help people clear out the trauma that they've experienced in past lives that is
Yeah.
still existing, or generational trauma that
Yeah.
has been in their family lineage for 10 or 12 or 15 generations. So,
Yeah. I do all of that stuff too.
yeah,
All important. It really is. Again, when you feel like you're doing all the work, you're doing everything right, and you just feel stuck, there's just a layer somewhere. It's not that you're not doing amazing work. It's not that you're not, capable of healing yourself. Everyone is capable of healing themselves. Is that one of those layers you haven't quite touched on yet? And there's dozens of them, right?
right.
Yeah.
Especially as we start to get up higher into the energies,
Yeah.
you start getting into 12-dimensional DNA and having, an etheric body that is unfathomably large. And that's kind of where we're at. We're the little cells inside of this gigantic being that is, the entirety of the universe. And even though it feels like we're the most important thing in the universe, there are levels and levels and levels well above us that uh have a much larger role in this reality, this thing that we call reality.
So I would question though, is it a more important role or a larger role?
True.
I would say we're all meant to be exactly where we are. And without every cog, that machine is not going to work the way that it needs to. Just
Yeah.
another perspective.
Yeah, maybe I kind of misspoke there. Not necessarily more important, but we are not the top of the chain is the message that I'm trying to kind of, because
Yeah. And I think
a-
we're not even a chain, like maybe a circle,
yeah, exactly.
right? So we're all at different places. But I think we've all, like, I know, and you agree with this, that we have all been at all the places on the wheel.
Right.
And we are all simultaneously in all the places at the same time while experiencing this, which,
Yeah.
I mean, you can just go down so many rabbit holes with that.
Exactly. Yeah, and some of it is very difficult to wrap your head around in a human conscious being, but it's
Yes,
fun
you
and I
can.
enjoy it. I love having these conversations and broadening my perspective and understanding, and hopefully everybody listening is also kind of broadening their perspective as far as what this human experience really is all about.
Mhm. I love having these conversations for that reason too.
Yeah. Well, Melanie, this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. So give us a little bit, if somebody wants to work with you, if somebody's
Mhm.
feeling stuck, if they, want to alchemize the lead in their life into gold, where can they reach out to you?
So the two best places to find me are on my website, which is melaniehuestis.com, or at Instagram at melaniehuestis.
Perfect. I'll make sure I include those links in the show notes. I really appreciate you coming on today, and I hope maybe we can have another conversation in a couple of months.
I would love that. Thank you, Joe.
Take care. Thank you again for listening to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner. If you enjoyed the show, please follow the podcast, hit the bell to know when a new show comes out, share with a friend, and rate us on whatever platform you're tuning in from. It helps get these messages out to more people to create the collective shift in reality we are here to experience. Make sure you interact with the Q&A and poll sections of the show so I can continue to provide content you enjoy. Finally, check out my website in the show notes to become a VIP of Changing the Channel and join the shift that is happening.